to Upstage Downstage with him, Richard Platt, seated in the upper circle.
And him, Stephen Rees, typically seated in the cheap seat.
This is the Theatre Podcast, where we discuss productions we've seen,
Things we've liked,
and may not have liked,
giving our complete unprofessional
and non-biased opinions.
So grab a brew,
Take a seat,
and let's raise that curtain. On today's episode, we'll be discussing Unfortunate, the untold story of Ursula the Sea Witch. We saw this production at Birmingham Hippodrome on the 13th of April 2024. Unfortunate is a parody musical of Disney's Little Mermaid. Ursula becomes the main character in the musical by Robin Grant, which was first performed in 2019 at the Edinburgh Fringe. So Stephen, what's it all about?
Join everyone's favourite Disney diva, Ursula, as she gives her take on what really happened all those years ago under the sea. With an original hot pop soundtrack and trademark filthy humour, it's time to take the plunge and dive into this year's hottest night out. Cruella told her side, and Maleficence had her moment. Now the legendary queer queen is ready to spill in this tell-all tale of sex, sorcery and suckers.
But first, our post-show opinion!
It's unfortunate, but I'd rather be under the sea.
I don't think I'll dip my toe into this one again for a bit. So, with all that said, let's set the scene.
Set the scene!
Oh, right, Billy Connolly.
So, Richard, Ursula the Sea Witch. Would you like to...
it's not.
What?
Ursula, the untold story of the Sea Witch.
How unfortunate that I was to say it wrong.
Well, you know.
Okay, so, Richard, would you like to set the scene for Ursula, the untold story of the Sea Witch?
And which iteration would you like me to explain? The one we saw that night, or the multiple times I've seen it?
You don't need to be talking about the multiple times, just the one time we did see it together.
Okay.
I don't know why we're talking like that. I don't know. It might pop in later.
Well, in the auditorium in Birmingham Hippodrome, the stage we were presented with was what could be described as a ship deck, really.
Oh, you said deck?
Yeah,
Not,
Anton
okay,
deck.
not so funny.
No, save the deck for later.
That's what she said. Okay, so it was a shipwreck, was it?
Ship deck.
A ship deck.
Yeah, so you got almost, if you looked at a pantomime scene where you'd see the Captain Hook with the controlling the ship from the wheel at the back.
Oh, so we're talking Captain Hook.
No, I'm just saying it's a very much the scene is very panto style scene. Well,
It's a panto set,
yeah,
basically.
yeah. It's like you're on the deck of a ship and you're just
Not the Titanic.
no, it's not. Definitely, it's a lot older than the Titanic. It's more like a pirate ship in that sort of era.
So I think we've just cleared it up for our listening viewers.
And it got two cascading mirrored staircases at the back that went to the middle point of the stage.
Mm-hmm.
There was no mirrors, but there were a mirror image of each other.
Mirror, mirror on the wall. But
Wrong panto.
in between the stairs, what was the middle bit?
It was a circular open area that... It was a circular orifice.
Open orifice.
Yes.
A circular orifice.
There was an orifice in the middle of the stage.
Oh dear.
And that was it, really. There was just a walkway at the top, really, where you could get across where the band actually were on the right-hand side and the left-hand side. I think they were both...
Is that called like a gantry?
Yeah, if you want to use the word gantry.
Well, I thought I'd import a little bit of my voice into the situation.
But it depends if we're port or starboard.
Oh, depends how much I've had to drink.
I prefer gin.
Anyway, we're going a little off-piste here.
No, it's in the sea, not on the snow.
Oh, dear me. So, we've set the scene.
Yep.
It was in a ship.
It was.
Well, that's that then.
It wasn't wrecked.
What was the whole... Never mind. Look, let me just have a drink. And now let's have a think. What do we think about this as a whole? Not the whole. We're not thinking about the whole. I mean, like, as a whole...
You're obsessed with the orifice.
It's just the way you said it. Well, also, you've seen several of these before. So let's just have that little bit of you talking about whilst I have a drink of tea.
Yeah. So as mentioned in the intro, with the production started in 2019 in the Edinburgh Fringe. I'm sure it started before that in rehearsal process and probably previews before it went to Edinburgh, but it actually made its name in Edinburgh in 2019 in a very small lecture theatre in the middle of Edinburgh. It wasn't in a big theatre production stage. It was just in quite I'd say probably 100-seat lecture theatre when I went to see it, and they did it all in one act. So I saw it then, and I enjoyed it, and then I saw it again in Birmingham, but in the studio theatre in Birmingham Hippodrome. It was a long time ago, and then I saw it again after the pandemic back in Edinburgh when it was in the Udderbelly in the big
In the what?
in the Udderbelly tent.
Udderbelly?
Yeah,
A tent?
he was in a tent in Cowgate.
An underbelly tent in the Cowgate?
Yeah,
Am I receiving you well?
you are receiving me well.
Okay.
I basically saw it under the
Stars?
under an upturned cow.
How much had you to drink?
It was actually, I think, like 4 or 5 o'clock in the day.
So you saw it
In an upturned cow.
on the underbelly on an upside down cow.
Yeah,
I mean, that
There
just
you
makes
go.
perfect sense.
there you go.
It's an upside down cow. You're
Told you.
showing me it's an upside down cow. Okay, so it's actually a building
It's
of a cow.
It's a temporary building, part of the Edinburgh Fringe, but
Was
it's
it a blow up
it's
one?
the main. Well, it's small. It's like a circus tent, but it's got they've
So
turned
it's a
it
circus tent of a cow that's upside down.
into, yeah, as you do.
I mean, that makes even more sense than just an upside down cow in a field.
Yeah, that means with grass. I mean, it might have been fake grass, but it was green.
You're being utterly ridiculous now.
I know. What can I say? But yeah, so I saw it then yet again it was one act. It was all done in one performance. Then I saw it in Sheffield Lyceum as a 2-act production.
And was that the same as the one in the Hippodrome?
No, this is the thing. The first 3 versions I've seen were the same as each one.
One act.
So when I saw it in Sheffield Lyceum, which was the 4th time in total, because I'd seen it by then, but that was actually a 2-act play, a 2-act musical, and they'd actually added extra songs and gave it more of a finale in the interval, and then another finale at the end. So they'd made it a bigger production. And actually, just to mention, I think out of the 4 times I'd seen it before this final one, Robin Grant actually played Ursula.
Oh.
So the lady who wrote it was actually Ursula.
Okay.
So yeah, so that just a little side note. Yeah, so I've seen it in different versions, different styles. So, I mean, we're talking about this one, but I will talk a bit later on the differences between the changes that were made, because I think it's, I don't want to break it up, talk about it all here.
Okay, so let's talk about it all here. Right. No, I'm joking. Obviously, I'm joking. I'm just speaking just to get a word in edgeways.
So I could drink my tea.
Yeah, and you have a tea break. Now, let's just talk about the whole... not the whole. Let's not talk about the whole.
Obsessed with the orifice.
It's the orifice of doom.
It's dark and dim and
Look,
in
it's
the
whatever
depths.
happens down below. I mean, when I say down below...
You won't say no.
I mean, behave. I obviously mean what happens in the deep. Still sounding
Isn't
wrong,
any
isn't
cheaper.
it? It's not. No, it's... Look, it doesn't really matter. Let's talk about the direction.
Yeah, okay.
How did you feel the direction went with this being a musical? Well, it doesn't really matter that it's a musical. Just how
No, I think because this is a parody, it's got a lot of energy, a lot of comedy movements, and a lot of silliness that you need to not be afraid of. I think that's the type of production this is.
It did come across like a pantomime, obviously, with how we've said about the whole set as well.
Yeah.
However, it was more towards the adult themes.
Yes.
With some of the songs, especially.
I think the thing is, for me, there's a lot of performance in this that you've got to play up to those characters that are in the original film, because it's based on The Little Mermaid.
And if you think, a lot of Disney animations of the time were taken from like the old pantomimes
Yeah,
and the old
exactly.
fairy tales and stuff like that as well.
And I suppose it's also they took the fact that the part of a pantomime or a fairy tale where there were key characters that were strong. There were key characters that were strong that had you knew that was Prince Eric, you knew that was Ariel, you knew that was Ursula. Everybody had very different looks and different actions to show that they were different people.
And an obvious portrayal of the goodies and the baddies.
Yeah, definitely.
However, it was just role reversed at this point.
Yeah, it's basically flipped. It's like you'd see on the other side of the coin, basically.
Because we were following Ursula's story, and we did get a slight bit of Easy A, Mean Girls, Heathers about it, with her going to college and being like bullied for being different or being larger than everyone else in the class.
And it's also it's the same style as Wicked.
Wicked, yeah.
Really, that's the whole the whole premise of it's just the flip side of a well-known fairy tale, really.
Because we're just wanting to know why they've gone bad. But whenever we do watch shows like this where they do think, how did that baddie become sort of like evil?
Yeah, exactly.
They always seem to go down the whole bullied at school or bullied wherever, and they've turned out this way because they had to.
And I think
it's a bit cliched, actually.
Yeah, and I think as well, you in the original film, you can see that there's.
Do you want to say that again without hiccupping in the middle?
Yeah, I didn't expect that. You can see in the film that there is obviously more to Ursula than is portrayed on the screen. You know that there's a bigger
more to her
story.
Than those suckers.
Yeah, there's more to her, but you know that say for example in her dungeon, as it were, in the deep,
under the sea,
surrounded by all the people that have lost their bet or they've not paid their dues. There's a lot of people there's a lot of merfolk in there that are left, which means there's a story behind her life. It's not just like Ariel's the first catcher or the first person to be involved in her life.
Yeah, she did it for a long period of time.
Yeah, you know that there's a lot more to it. So I can see why Robin Grant grabbed onto this and just thought we need to do this. I mean, I don't know how she got I mean, she's been very gutsy to try and do it against a Disney film. It's quite an interesting take, really.
In terms of the musical numbers that were in this, for the whole dancing segment or whatever, how do you feel they came across? Were they different to the other versions you had?
Personally, there's a few added. I can't list them all, but there's a few added that I just feel like there may have been more filler than required. But then that makes it a 2-act production rather than a 1. There wouldn't actually be enough content in it to be a 2-act production. And maybe I can see why they added things. I mean, I'm That Witch was good for the end because I suppose the finale needed that final sort of flourish, really. It's interesting because I think it's very difficult to add more to something when you make a production so powerful in one act that's memorable. And I know you've not seen 6 yet, but 6 is a 1-act production. And if you're strong in a production, you don't need to have an interval always to make a production be memorable. That I think sometimes editing's important, and I think you can add things in just to flesh something out. You know. So,
but in terms of the direction of the whole piece, do you feel there was any missed tricks or things that could have been done better, or were there things that just looked a bit odd?
For me, there was a few bits in this version that we saw in Birmingham that I do think some of the humour was a little bit lost because the production was coming across bigger than maybe it needed to. I think there was a few times where some of the key funny bits or the nudge, nudge, wink, wink funny lines sort of got rode over. It's like the sea cucumber moment.
Yeah, for me that was a bit odd.
It was odd, but in the previous iterations it was really funny because it was actually spent more time on, and it was it became funny over time.
I was going to talk about this in the writing. What is it? Does it exist basically, in mythology in Disney?
Well, no, what it was saying is there was another princess. There was a sea cucumber.
It's a made up one.
And Triton's dad killed the princess and blamed Ursula. So it was a twist of story for Ursula to be seen as bad all the way through when actually she wasn't. But there was more made of that in the previous versions of it rather than this. It seemed to just disappear.
It seemed to have just glide over that whole aspect because it just seemed, it came across certainly like it was just
I think for me,
hearsay, sort of, that's what happened, so we're going to firmly believe it without even questioning it at all.
Yeah, and if you imagine in previous versions, you're in a smaller space, so when you've got an actual cucumber to snap and in front of people, it was funny. Whereas in a huge space, to have if you don't elevate some of the props, it can really disappear, and I think that's what happened. It just
shrunk on
stage. You lost the impact of it really.
Yeah,
and I think it just made that storyline bit just disappear into the background a little bit.
I mean, did that cucumber have any little babies, little pickles or anything?
Well, exactly.
They could have added a little bit more in there. What I would say about the direction of that particular section was I really did appreciate it when I think it was in Act 2 where they were walking around the graveside of it, but then they picked up the tombstones that said like Bambi's mother and some other like Disney characters that had passed away in the Mufasa, I think was one. Wasn't it? Yeah, and they just matched that with the Princess Cucumber.
Yeah. That was that was good.
That was a nice little nod I felt towards it.
But I think it could have been stronger. I think that's the
Yeah, I felt that all the way through, to be honest.
And I think they're the bits that I maybe struggled with because I knew how good I'd seen it previously to how sometimes expanding something to put it on a larger stage can actually dilute it a little bit.
I think we're merging into the writing now, so we might as well just carry on venturing into that little pothole.
There's plenty of them round.
Bloody holes again. It's more a case of spot the road in the pothole, isn't it?
Yeah, always.
I felt the whole production, because this is obviously the first time I've seen it, I felt that it just lacked a bit of meat on it. Like, I suppose like we were just saying, they just took it that Ursula was the reason for that death, without even Ursula thinking, now I need to vindicate myself, I need to go out and do that. Where she just accepted it quite easily and banished, allowed herself to be banished away. And I felt there was probably a little bit more they could do there. But within the songs themselves, a lot of musicals, when you've got high-pitched vocalists on there, you can't really understand or hear the lyrics and the lines, especially if they're loud.
No, exactly.
And not one of these songs I could understand. Some of them were quite funny.
Yeah.
But because they didn't enunciate enough, or because it must have been in a higher registering key or something, that it just went straight over my head, because your brain's trying so hard just to understand what it is that they're saying or singing, that you can't take in the information, like even if it is a comedy, but that the songs are there to drive the story and the plot along. So, but if you're not understanding what they're saying, you don't know where it's going or what it was for.
And in a way, that's also an issue with expanding a production to be a big full stage production rather than a smaller stage production that feels more organic and more homemade. And I don't mean homemade in a bad way. I mean, if you think we've seen productions where they've almost got no props, no this, no that, no the other, and if it was just their vocals and less loud music behind, I think to make a production big, sometimes people think we've got to have a huge sound system, we've got to drown it out, we've got to make it feel big, but actually that can drown the cast out.
Oh, definitely. Yes.
Because you make the sound bigger and you make it, and I think if you haven't got strong narration to back it up, you're going to struggle to you've got to almost guess. It almost becomes a bit of a mime production sometimes,
Yeah, I think whenever the males sang, when I say male, I mean, who was he? Thomas Lowe. as Triton, I could actually hear what he was saying, because I think the music took a different turn. It was more rock than pop.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
there was less bass, and you can actually hear what he's saying.
Yeah, but with his lower resonance, you could pick up everything he was saying, but it was more whenever people start screeching.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, for me, it's like one of the funniest entrances that you won't have seen, that it felt a bit flat for me, was Prince Eric's entrance, and all the time he was on stage in the previous versions, he was hilarious. And it's the same guy.
Yeah.
So he knows what he's doing. It's Jamie Mawson's done Eric in a lot of most of the versions I've seen him do it in. But I think it's just the sheer size of it then meant that he sort of, I wouldn't say faded. He was just less present when he came out, and I think that I can't say it's a direction issue. I think it's just it's the effect of expanding this production to such a big scale.
Yeah.
Sometimes, because you don't feel like you can reach out and touch them and laugh with them. Whereas the productions I've seen it before, you almost felt like you were with them, and there was more lingering on the lines and making the most of those lines rather than making it a pop musical. And I think that's maybe why I'm struggling, because it was almost like the songs that were there, but the lines were more important in the previous versions.
I must admit, this is quite a forgettable musical for me.
I mean,
I'm struggling to remember and to think.
I mean, let's face it, personally, I don't go and see any production more than once if I don't like it. And so seeing this a few times and going to see it again in Edinburgh, which I wouldn't normally do. If I'm going to go and see something, I'll see it, and then if I'm not bothered, I won't go again. But the fact I've seen it more than once, it's quite interesting that now I've seen it at such a huge scale, actually, I'd prefer it back at the level it was, in a way.
Like a one-act play, a bit more...
Really strong, funny,
yeah,
to the point. And I think that's maybe what makes it feel less exciting, because it felt lingering. It just didn't feel delayed.
Well, it had some standout tracks and standout characters, but we'll talk about that later in the acting section. But I do feel that it lost its way a little bit in terms of the narrative and the drive and probably the structure.
Yeah, there's a few bits that I want to talk about, and I'm just looking at some of the songs, and I know that some of the things were just almost rode over, but they were the funny pieces. They were the funny bits,
Yeah, I think what the songs that stick out the most are "Sucking on You," simply because that seems to be one of the dirtiest songs, and the ones that were selling the T-shirts and the pop bottles and stuff with those words on. "Where the Dicks Are" is another one.
Yeah. We Didn't Make It to Disney was another one.
I was going to say, yeah, that was another one. I actually quite like that one.
I love that one.
Because in that one, they brought out these ass-ugly fishes.
Yeah.
And stuff that were like...
garish and horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The sort of things you see at the bottom of the ocean on like a David Attenborough kind of documentary, you know. And they were singing clearly about, they weren't good enough for Disney. And they were included. But in a way, whilst that was a good one and I enjoyed it and it was memorable, in a way it didn't really drive the story. It doesn't do anything. It just sticks out.
Yeah, it's basically... Because
it's not telling the story of Ursula, is it?
No, but I suppose that scene's basically to take you to the dark, dank area of where she lived and where she ended up. That was like the final scene. But because
it's about... They didn't make it to Disney. It's more of a... Because it's in the parody and the joke and the jibe, which I think we get, and it's quite funny. But again, I think that pads it down a little bit.
Yeah.
Weighs it down. And there was another one, which was in Act 2, Les Poissons. The French, the one in the soup. I think that was a good one. I think it was that one.
For me, it was To Be King as well. That was the one that Triton sang on his own.
Yeah. Whilst I could understand that and get that, it didn't really stand out. Although it stood out from the rest of them in terms of me being able to hear it.
But this is where I'm coming back to the point where a lot of the lines weren't enunciated enough for you to get the rest of the things that went with that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, it's like Where the Dicks Are, that is basically Ariel's scene to be in her place where all her treasure trove is and everything that she has. But I felt like, and I'm not really going to talk props, but the Prince Eric statue was almost on for seconds and then went. It wasn't on long enough for people to laugh. It was almost, we need to get it off to do the next scene rather than use it for the tool it needed to be. That's, you know what I mean?
I mean, I laughed at it because I could see what it was doing, but it was very much like, here's a cake, share them a cake, right, take this cake off.
Yeah, and that's what I mean.
I'm talking about cake.
No, but it's the same principle as in, show the audience, move it on. And it's like,
here's your birthday cake.
But it's actually quite, when you look at the movie and the fact that whole needing ballad that's sung around the statue because she's longing for being wanted in a sexual way. But not just wanted in a sexual way, but in the original film it's about wanting to leave the life she's living, and it's basically a parody of that.
Obviously it's a children's film, so they wouldn't want to put sexual.
No, but what I mean is it's that the film never threw it away, and it was always that scene that's memorable, and you're recreating that with a rude song as a parody. And then to just throw the statue away and just like move on, it's like you lose the elements that link to the film that then tie it up, because that's the first time you see Ariel in that whole scene, really, where you see it. And I mean, I love that scene because you've got Ariel who you expect to be somebody really well spoken and turns out to be an Essex girl, and it's funny and it's.
Well, it wasn't just an Essex girl; it was a drag queen, River Medway.
Yeah,
Essex. So that was another like spin on it as
well. Yeah.
So you had the Essex voice, which was deepened as well, which gave it another dimension. Is there anything else you want to discuss, or shall we move swiftly on to
I'm happy to move on.
Yeah, all right then. Let's see you on the other side.
Moving on to our next segment, as we say, we're here for the drama.
So on this one, I think I would have to give a shout out to River Medway, simply because every time she was performing as Ariel, the stage sort of just like glowed more.
Yeah.
And I was really like wanting to see more of her even when she sort of lost her voice.
Yeah.
Everything she was doing, whether that was like trying to help the crab, what's his name?
Sebastian.
Trying to help Sebastian out the cooking pots and stuff.
Yeah.
And all that. There was a lot of comic timing and slapstick-esque going on there.
Yeah, I mean, my other shout out is Ali Dart. She was amazing. She's the one that played Sebastian and many other characters.
Oh, she's very versatile. But she, yes, definitely.
I've seen her in pretty much every version I've seen of this, and she's captivating as a performer.
She was.
She's got that. She's just got that quality that I mean,
she comes across as a very seasoned actor as well.
Yeah, and she never missed a beat. She was always, if she had to change, she was back off, she came back on. She was, you knew she was on it. You knew she was on again. And I mean, to be honest, all the cast were, she was just the one that stood out for me.
Also, Shauna Hemmick as Ursula, she very much commanded that stage.
Yeah, she embodied the character.
Everything, with the costume.
Yeah.
And her evilness as well.
Yeah,
but not just her evilness, when she was being polite and when she was actually loved up and feeling it within.
Yeah.
You knew there was so many sides to Ursula, and she delivered on every single one of those notes. I think, personally for me, though, whilst she was good and Triton, who was Thomas Lowe, was great as well.
Yeah.
I do feel that River Medway stole it for me.
Yeah.
I think it's just the stupidness of the accent,
the
deeperness of the voice, and the fact that she was just so common and down to earth.
But she embodied the
in this
delusion
farce.
as well, because I think that's the part of it that works for Ariel. Because I've obviously seen different females play that role, and it works just as well with River Medway. And I think that's the thing for me. It's they all embody that ditzy, just.
Imagine if like Dolly Parton playing that role, for example.
Exactly.
The high pitched
Yeah,
voice
exactly.
as well,
Yeah.
but being dumb.
Yeah, exactly.
As well, and
Yeah.
big breasted as well.
Yeah.
That would still have worked.
Yeah, of course it would. Yeah, totally.
As well, because I think it's just that kind of a role that.
Yeah, it
I
must
find
be, it must be
funny
fun to
anyway.
play as well. It's that role that you can just be everything you're not, and it's sort of, it's quite.
I can play up to the dumb a bit.
Well, I know that. I mean,
the breasts are a bit here and there.
and delusion, definitely.
Absolutely. I love it when you compliment me.
You've just got to throw them all in.
Into the hole. We won't go there.
I need you to shut that orifice.
How unfortunate.
No, I mean, this is a classic case of, we've got a talented cast. Everybody did what they needed to do.
Also, let me just butt in here because I've just sparked my memory. Ursula's fishy friends, they were all in the neon things, the ensemble people.
Yeah.
When they were great working together, they were timing and then falling down the steps on their arse. That was one of them.
Well, one of them was Ali Dart.
The character name or the
No, Ali Dart was one of those.
Sebastian.
Yeah, but no, Ali Dart was one of those as well.
Oh, was it? Are you sure?
Yeah. It was.
It was her and him. Oh yes, of course, yes.
Yeah.
Ali Dart, and who's the other one? Grimsby.
Yeah, it was Grimsby. Yeah. Jack Gray.
Oh, one did not know.
Yeah.
That.
Well, actually,
No, it wasn't.
No, it was the one behind Ali Dart in the picture. He played. It was him. It was Jack Gray.
No, because look, they're both dressed up in those characters.
Yeah, but when we saw it, it wasn't. It was those two that are next to each other.
Well, I'll be bum swizzled.
Yeah, it was Jack Gray.
Well, I don't know who to applaud on that one, but I just particularly liked it then. I'll take
Yeah.
your word for it. Some other little props, which is, I suppose, more of a set piece that I felt
Are we talking props now?
Well, it was all in the same segment.
That's fine. That's good. No, it's fine.
Why?
No, because I've got some bits I want to say. So
We'll take a ticket and wait your turn, yeah?
I've took one. Cashier number 3, please.
Sorry, closed. The part where Ariel is on a date
Yeah.
and they're in the boat. It was the most smallest boat. Do you remember that?
That's one of my props that I want to say.
Oh well, yeah. You chip in whenever you
It wasn't.
want.
It wasn't a boat. It was a piece of cardboard.
It was ridiculous.
It was a
wasn't
folded out piece of cardboard.
But that could have been so much
Do
better.
you want to know what the Sheffield Lyceum version was?
No,
It was a swan boat
a swan boat.
with a swan head and a big boat on wheels.
So why didn't they retain
I don't
that?
know.
Why were we left with this sort of?
This is
rubbish?
why I couldn't. I was a little bit perplexed because I felt like we're throwing a lot of props away because we're rushing.
Not Russian.
No, not rushing, but we're rushing because that's what I mean about all the prop use in this version we've seen. Why is it the previous version we got the aesthetics of a swan pedal boat, which was funny because it was a swan pedal boat, and you can see why it'd be funny because it was just a normal rowing boat in the production, in the musical, in the film.
If they'd have kept it as like a pedaling thing, but on wheels, so they could actually move it
that's
about
what
and
they
pedal
did.
it about.
They did that.
That would have been more
But
hilarious.
that's what they did, and it makes more sense.
Do you think they just did it for timing?
I think there's a lot of things that, and there's another bit, in the first half where, if you think of the film, there's that final scene where she finds Eric. She rests on a rock where the waves wash up behind her.
Yes.
Right? They had the rock in the last version.
Yes.
And it's like this version, she was just on the floor.
Lollygagging about.
Lollygagging around. And it was like the elevation wasn't there. And I couldn't understand why we've
so why did
not
they
got
remove
that. Like a polystyrene rock that was just something.
Do you know what they could have done? They could have had that rock. She could have been up there, and a couple of the characters could have come in with like a blue, like bit of fabric
and just throw it. Yeah,
and
this is the thing. These are
with it.
and I think this is why I was disappointed with this version, because I've had those elements in the previous versions
so they've
of
taken a lot of
even
creative
I've seen
segments out.
it's almost like we've rushed the props to like get the production done, but actually we've lost the elements.
Do you think they lost a couple of props and set pieces when they moved the
the set was different last time. The set was different last time. So it was, and this is why I was little bit, the set was the same as the production set that was used in Edinburgh and then in the tour and stuff. So it's very different. It's difficult to understand why they've took out some of the good elements that give you the iconic moments that link to the film. I think that's what I was struggling with. It's those bits where
that matter, really.
The matter, because you don't need all the other stuff around it if you've got that. And I think that's why it made more sense. You'd have seen it more, and you've seen the funny side of it more, because when I saw that, they didn't have all the backdrops and the this, that, and the other. They just did it with all the stuff around them, and and it was almost like shipwrecked items that became all the things that they needed. And I think that's
the bit where they're talking about sucking on you.
Yeah,
that became a song, and they had like a magician's cubicle come out, and it was actually a urinal and a toilet thing there. Pray tell me, what the hell was that about?
I think that was just meant to show a school.
In the toilets?
It's in the toilets in the school. But that's because that was like the age of them. That was like to just take you to that time and place, really.
Yeah.
I think that's all that was there to show. Sorry, I found the original set. That's the one they had made for the previous tour.
That looks very...
It's like underwater.
It looks like a Dame Edna an evening with.
Yeah. But that makes more sense because it's underwater all the time. This was on the boat.
Yeah.
We're not on the boat.
So why... Exactly. And also, if they're underwater, why have a urinal? I mean, that would be quite funny if it was in that setting, but if it was on the... I'm just ever so confused. Because even Triton, that's the god of the underworld, isn't it? Not underworld.
It's the king of the
sea.
King of
the sea, not of the underworld.
Yeah.
But king of the sea. So why were they on the boat? Because it was a prince's boat.
But
in
the
actual
whole
movie, because that's where Ariel pops her head up. But
it was like the scene where the ships, before it gets wrecked and stuff like that, they brought out the ship railings and a platform for Eric to stand on with the wheel.
Yes,
which was enough.
Yeah, in
the other versions. So it was like,
but we had that in this version.
We did, but it was on the ship because the ship's already there.
Oh my goodness!
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, he sang a song as well. An adventure, was it? An adventure?
Wasn't it Hot Girl Summer? Oh no, that was.
Oh, they're so forgettable. I think it might have been An Adventure, because that sounds more like it was them. To be honest, I don't know, and I don't care anymore.
No, I think as well the other thing is that I'd probably talk about is the change in the script, where Scuttle doesn't actually exist much in this production.
Who's Scuttle?
Scuttle was the seagull. So the seagull in the film.
Oh right.
That found all the stuff in the human world and this, that, and the other.
Yes.
But Scuttle was replaced by the cook. And the cook wasn't in the original. The other versions I've seen. That's why it's a bit of a shock to me, because Scuttle was just part of that was almost adding to the narration and the and I think this is the thing.
When you copy and paste something on a computer, but then you decide to close down or it shuts down halfway through, and you're left with two dodgy documents that neither makes sense.
Yeah.
I think that's the kind of production we've got, where they've tried to update it and copy and move it onto something else, but then it's sort of like neither here nor there, really.
Yeah, exactly. I just feel like it's lost its way from what it was, And I can see why you may update some bits and this, that, and the other, but I feel that it just did lose its way this time.
It was quite shocking to see quite a lot of kids coming to see this show.
Oh yeah,
considering
I was waiting to talk about this. The same as go on. Sorry.
Well, yeah, considering it's full of rude words. And well, it's not just the rude words; it's the fact that it was it's not really for
it's
kids
adult
at
in
all.
its theme.
They
The
should have
whole
really
thing
said
is adult.
something because it wasn't just the rude words that were sung. There was a lot of expletives being said during the production anyway. Even some that I felt was a bit overused and it just lost its meaning.
And not just that, nothing on the poster led you to believe it was a rude parody.
Well, exactly.
Everything led you to believe it was going to be another Wicked.
Yeah.
In the sense of it's a family production, we can all go and see it.
Yeah.
The actual poster on the front, it actually makes it look quite joyous.
It does.
And you think, this is where it's gone from being a niche cabaret performance that was actually really funny and adult because you knew that kids didn't want to be going to see this, to now being something that parents are unsure and they see it and go, well, I'll book it because it looks good based on not knowing anything about it.
It feels like it's been seen as a cash cow. Oh, this looks exciting. Let's throw some money on it, give it a set, tour it, and then the whole point of it is an afterthought of actually kids are coming to see this. We should have thought about the marketing a little bit better.
And also having advertising River Medway in it and things like that makes you think, oh, it's going to be like family because it's going to be a drag race sort of production and it'll be a bit funny, it'll be this and then it.
But again, drag is more adult entertainment than kid. It's not like story time as well.
True, but I suppose it adds to the panto-esque style of this. This looks more panto than it does.
Well, the setup does definitely.
The whole leading into the audio. When you walk up to it.
Yeah, but there's a fine line between a good panto with a proper pantomime dame than a drag race.
Of course,
and
totally.
It's kind of like the language that
totally.
we do get.
But I think when you read the synopsis or whatever for the actual production, it doesn't say it's a rude parody or it's got full of adult themes or it doesn't.
If I had kids and I was taking them to this, I'd be extremely annoyed and angry. The fact that.
Well, I'll be honest. I said to you the other day, I was a bit shocked because I was like, some of these kids don't know what they're letting themselves in for. Yeah. The parents don't know what they're letting themselves in for.
I mean, you get away with innuendo that goes over their heads, like in panto.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's like it serves two purposes: to entertain the adults whilst entertaining the kids. But this was damn right straight out there. This is on the nose. Yeah. This is more than on the nose. This was like so in your face.
There was no nudge, nudge, wink, wink.
No, it wasn't clever.
It was telling you as it is.
Yeah. And when she's like effing and blinding or whatever.
Yeah,
it makes you, as an audience member, become a little bit awkward.
Yeah, totally.
Particularly if you do have kids or you're chaperoning people as well.
Yeah, and I think even some of the quotes when you read them does to The Little Mermaid what Wicked did to The Wizard of Oz. It's like, if you bill it like that, people are going to think, well, I've took my kids to Wicked. I'll take my kids to this.
Well, this is another thing. The only reason why they'll say it like that is because both of them have had an upglow of Mean Girls, Heathers, Easy A. It's that story repeated.
It's just how way. They've just took those characters to do that, haven't they?
Yeah. But with them doing this as a parody, you can go that far, but at least advertise it.
I think the thing is, it's like some of the adverts out there, the content guidance is an afterthought in this one. And I know we've spoken in the past about other productions where they've overwarned you before a production.
Village Idiot was another one where it was just constant, making sure you were okay, and if you had a comfort blanket, and would you like to be wrapped up in cotton wool.
Whereas this was almost like off you go before you even know what you're letting yourself in for.
Just say, parental...
Yeah, just parental advice or contains
strong language. That's
adult themes. Say, it's like you've got to be...
Yeah, you don't need a whole song and dance paragraph about it, just something so you are aware of it being a bit too taboo or being because you're sort of taking away your own responsibility for your own exactly viewpoint, and I am mostly thinking of kids in this one simply because it is basically a kid's story. Little Mermaid.
And,
do you know
and
what
I'll
I
be
mean?
honest, after the first half, I could have expected walkouts if people felt uncomfortable.
Mm.
You know, if they didn't know what they were letting themselves in for, you could, you know, and that's not good for production. If you pre-warn people, it's like going to the Book of Mormon and not knowing that it's going to be full of and taking young kids to it, isn't it? You know, it's like you've got to know that it's gonna.
But the thing with the Book of Mormon there, whilst it's got religious aspects to it on the actual advertisement.
Yeah,
thing,
exactly.
It's not based on a Disney film.
No,
it's not
exactly.
Based on something
No,
that
exactly.
The kids will say, "Oh,
It doesn't
please, I want to go
attract.
see that."
Yeah,
exactly. Now,
Yeah.
imagine you taking kids to see Chitty Chitty Bang Bang.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
they're swearing and
Yeah.
cursing and
bang bang.
well, exactly, and you know they're sort of like
I mean,
sort of dropping and doing all sorts of
I think
sexual
when
acts
you
in the back of the
and
car.
it's like I suppose when you know when you look at the synopsis or whatever, and it talks about what Maleficent did or what the Maleficent films were still family films. You know, the opposite side, those Disney films that explored her side, were still family films. They weren't something that it didn't. You know, Disney didn't turn Maleficent into a chain smoking whore. You know what I mean? They didn't, did they? You know,
Well,
you know, and
but she wasn't.
But she wasn't. It wasn't crude filth like to the point of. But I think it's not just that. Less is more sometimes, and I think I think when you see Ursula portrayed as somebody who looks joyous and is going to be entertaining, it's very difficult then to when you sit in the room and you watch something that is actually could be quite jarring, really, for a family audience.
I think it's just ideal to be courteous as to your audience members.
Yeah,
really, on that one. Now, Richard, let's just have a little brief mention about the costumes.
Yeah.
Because they were created by Abby Clark.
Yeah.
Set costumes and puppet designer. Now, wasn't too pleased about the set, I suppose. I mean, it was a good set. Wasn't quite sure where that worked into the whole situation.
No.
But it was, even if it was the shipwreck of the set, it was a really good looking shipwreck and set, and it worked.
It was.
It did work. It sort of wasn't, you know, it just wasn't.
It just wasn't.
Yeah, well, I suppose it was just. Well, I don't know. To be honest, it wasn't. It just wasn't.
No, it
just wasn't. Now let's just talk about the costumes, because the costumes I felt was extremely well done.
Yeah.
Ursula's, for let's start off, she was a complete octopus, and she had an amazing sort of like punk rock-esque.
Yeah, she did. There was definitely an evolution of Ursula rather than just starting. She didn't just stay in the one costume all the way through.
Yeah.
She was you could tell she was getting older throughout almost.
Did they have an updo from like a glow up from the ones you've seen before?
There's a few changes again.
Yeah. I thought the costumes had a lot of detail. There wasn't overly done. Like a lot of things would have been wasted. I think it had just the right amount of detail, the right amount of colour, and once the set lighting hit those fabrics and stuff, it glistened. It made it feel as if they were scales.
Yeah, exactly.
Watery,
yeah, it had that effect.
The neon effect on some of the characters as well during the blackout and stuff. They really sparkled.
Yeah, I mean, what I was going to say is the two that played Flotsam and Jetsam, which was Ursula's sidekicks.
Flotsam and Jetsam, yes.
They were two actual puppets in the like long eels that were wrapped around the body.
Yeah.
And had faces and mouths that moved.
Yeah.
And actually, I think that was better than what we got in this production, where it was the two of them just dressed in neon. It was good, but I felt like.
But they did have. I'm sure they had puppets, because didn't they die in this?
No,
and they ended up being like flake.
No, they were two puppets. They didn't actually have it.
Yeah, but I'm sure they had like puppet versions of them that died on a plate or something, because they turned into them.
No, they were the little thing. They were the little controlled. They were the things that Ursula would turn them into her pets.
I don't know.
But no, what I'm saying is it was. I mean, I liked it, and I liked some of the costumes they were wearing. I mean, Flounder was good. It was Flounder turned into a sailor, basically, the yellow and blue classic sort of outlook. And Ariel,
lovely costumes.
yeah, I mean, but also Ariel matched very similar to what Ariel the musical is. The musical.
Do you mean the film?
No, the actual stage version of Ariel of Little Mermaid. Ariel matched the costume style of what was on stage for Ariel in the similar way where the tail flicks out on the back when she's walking around. So it's very similar.
Well, I think that's probably quite an easy one to do because it was very much in keeping of the film as well.
Yeah.
A bit like Ursula as well. They were easy to design.
Yeah.
But they just look so uplifted and detailed as well. It wasn't just a plain garment. They were like had a lot more detail in it as well. And same goes. Well, all of them really. They definitely stood out.
Yeah, they did.
And even going back to the set, it was a lovely wooden structure.
Yeah,
of a ship.
It felt aged. It felt
everything.
like it had been there on stage it felt like it'd been on the ship for a long time.
It also felt a little otherworldly,
Yeah.
sort of like classic, old style. With they brought elements of the seashells to be part of that.
Yeah, totally.
I think whilst that was a beautiful set, I don't know if it was the right one, considering a lot of the time was spent underwater.
No, exactly. I know.
So I think that's the only thing. And I know you can actually do different things because it being a musical. You can set it outside of that.
But now I've shown you what the other set was.
Well, I am a bit. Well, I'm not really sure. It was a great design.
Oh yeah, exactly.
So I think Abby Clark's, who designed both the set and the costume, was excellent. But obviously the set, I'm a bit unsure. I'm just not convinced on that one.
No.
Of if it made sense for it to be that.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
But it was still beautiful, nevertheless.
Yeah.
Anything else you would like to ask? Not ask. Anything else you'd like to discuss before we go on to the technical aspect?
I don't think so. I think I've.
Well, if you don't think so, don't say any more.
I think I've said what I need to say about props, and I think I've.
Don't hurt your brain thinking.
No, it's fine.
Moving on to our next segment, as we say,
What the tech is this?
What I do want to say before you start spouting on about how technical thing it is, we had on the night we came to see mic issues, didn't we?
More than one.
I don't know who Mike is, but he had issues. Yes.
Mr. Microphone.
It was Mr. Grimsby. I think it was Julian Campoli. When he was singing, his mic kept like it was like the aux cable kept like moving about, so it was like in and out.
However, the change of it's like there's something coming undone somewhere as they're breaking the cable.
Like it wasn't properly plugged in.
And
properly.
every time he turned it cut
crackled
out.
or cut out. Yeah. So that he carried on with that song. I don't know which song because they're all a bit forgettable, but he carried on with that song, and you could tell when it was being projected or supported by the mic, and then when it wasn't. But it didn't stop him. In fact, we started rooting for him to just get through it. Hopefully, you can get out the side wings afterwards.
Yeah, and I mean, hats off to him for carrying on and getting on with it. But it does create a problem when you're having to keep pushing through. And there was a couple of other ones.
I think
mic
River
issues
Medway.
as well.
I think.
Yeah, and there was a few issues where the mics weren't switched on fast enough.
Yeah, so you lost a bit of the
You could
first
hear the
section.
vocal. You can hear them talking on stage, but you wouldn't have heard them at the back rows because no chance.
It's like, why is it like whenever we have seen pantomimes and the women start singing, it's always the first bit that is missing. Have you noticed that?
It's because there's a delay on the switch on of the mic, so if they're muted, if you unmute them, they don't come straight on. There's like a delay. Slight delay, and that can be enough to miss out the first bit.
But why mute them at all?
Because if they're off stage and coming back on,
yeah,
they mute them when they leave stage, so when they're getting a quick change or whatever done.
Yeah.
But the fine art of sound and sound engineering is to know where they're waiting on the wing and the fact that they're going to come on a split second before.
Yeah.
So you need to unmute before they come on stage, not as they come on stage.
Yeah.
And it's all about. This is where the technical side has always been my bugbear, that needs to be rehearsed as much as those on stage. You need to know what's happening, and if the sound or the tech doesn't focus on those little parts of it, that can let a production down very quickly.
I suppose if the technical people are sat in the audience right at the back, though, they don't know necessarily where the actors are in the wings and if they're ready yet, especially if it's a bit like noise is off and they're all panicking backstage and stuff. But really, actors need to be...
But when you're halfway through a run and you've done it for a good few months beforehand, you should know.
Oh, actors are just chaotic.
They are
Some
chaotic, but
if they were professional, they'll be waiting in the wings, ready to go on, being quiet.
But when you're doing it at this level, on a larger stage, because this stage holds a lot of people, as in this seating plan, the
auditorium does.
The auditorium is one of the largest in the country, and you don't get things like that wrong. You've got to make them. You've got to make it right. It's an extra level of, performance, really. People are paying a lot of money to see these productions, and I think
it would help if they weren't muted, the actors.
But it's the attention to detail that lets things down sometimes. It becomes complacent and it doesn't make it fun. You can't even wash it over going, well, it's a bit of fun, it doesn't matter. No, it does matter, because that's, making a parody or a comedy of something where you need to hear everything. Drops in dialogue make a lot of difference. If you can't hear it, it's wasted.
And what else do we think about the whole technical sounding and lighting with this? I felt it was okay and great. I didn't think anything else was.
I think for me,
lighting.
Lighting wise was fine. It did everything it needed to do. Sound wise is where I thought it let it down, was the blend between the vocals and the music. I think there was an over egging of the music, making it a loud, brash production.
It was live instruments, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was live. Yeah. But what I mean is the actual blend of that sound against vocals. Yeah. I think we lost a lot of the humour because it was more about increasing the sound.
I think also some of the songs are a bit too fast.
Yeah.
So when you go too fast and too high, it is a bit unaudible.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that
is it unaudible or
inaudible?
Inaudible. I thought it was wrong. The moment I said it.
Yeah,
but that's inaudible.
That's where I think this is. It's very easy to get carried away making a sound bigger because you're in a bigger space, but sometimes you need to rein it in a little bit every so often.
Yeah. Anything else, or shall we wrap
Not
it
that
up?
I can think of.
No.
And now it's time for our Rewind Rewatch.
Rewind Rewatch, Richard. Which part of this show would you like to watch again?
I'd like to watch the Sheffield Lyceum version, please. Again.
Ooh.
Not this version.
Oh, that came out of left wing there.
I don't want to see this version again. And I know that's really nasty, but when I've seen it so many times, I'd like to see the previous intonations of it. Thanks.
Sounds really sad.
I know. But
I don't particularly have a favourite song. As I say, all a little forgettable. I'll probably have to listen to the soundtrack to understand it. But I think anything with River Medway on, with her bits with Ursula, I think I'd probably see again. Now, only the bits where she's talking though. Just because I just like that voice in amongst everybody. But other than that, I'll leave it at that.
Moving on to our final segment, as we say,
Call this a show?
I think I've just summed it up really, and what I'd like to see is previous versions of this. I mean, I feel deflated because I was expecting it to be elevated, and what I got was
a de-elevation.
Yeah, I think the cast were good. I just think it was let down by the changes to the book, really.
For me, this is the first time I've seen this production, and I genuinely believe it's overhyped, in all honesty. I thought the actors did an amazing job. I thought they were thoroughly entertaining with what they were doing. The dance moves were great. Some of the songs stuck out, and whilst I was listening to them and watching them and trying to understand what they were saying, I enjoyed what I could out of it. However, I've seen it once and I won't want to see it again.
Yeah, and I think for me it's like the prop changes and things like that. There was just a few confusing bits for me that made it just lost something. You haven't got the key elements in there that were stronger in previous versions.
The finale of this, with the whole musical number, and then we all bowed, we all clapped.
Yeah.
And then they did like a bit of a remix, didn't they? And we all started dancing. I think I thoroughly enjoyed that. That was a good ending to the show.
That
was a nice
that worked really
ending.
well. Yeah.
And they all looked like they had an amazing time.
Yeah, and in a way it was the last performance that night, so you could tell there was they
were probably thankful.
They probably were before it moved on to wherever it was going next. So that's probably why they really enjoyed it. I mean, one thing I would say though.
Oh, just the one thing. Is it the key thing?
It's not a key thing, but actually in what you can see in the programme didn't actually happen, because I don't think they put the actual mirror ball and the winch up to actually lift her up into the sky. She just did it on floor level.
Should she have been up in the...
She should have been up in the sky in a mirror ball.
Oh my God.
Ursula should have actually took off from stage, but actually it didn't happen. So I don't know why it didn't happen in Birmingham when it happened in Leicester and it happened in all the other places.
They've really had issues in Birmingham.
I don't know what's... Yeah, I don't know if
Something's
this...
cracking off
Yeah,
there.
I don't know if everything's been rushed and they've... But then...
Or again, they might have had that huge mirror ball, but it was on the same lorry as the Swan and everything else, and that must have been stolen or lost, or they didn't.
Yeah,
they couldn't get to the Birmingham Hippodrome in time.
No. Who knows?
Who knows?
We will never know.
If you know, do drop us a comment or anything else, and let us know what the situation is.
Yes.
Scores then, please, Richard, for Unfortunate. The untold story of Ursula the Sea Witch. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being sucked off with her suckers to perfection, and 1 being an unfortunate story, best kept untold. What's it going to be?
I'm going to give this a 6. Down the line. Can't really say much more. I scored high previously, but not now.
Yeah, did we record this one?
No, we never recorded it, but I scored it.
Did you talk about it at the Edinburgh?
I did it in Edinburgh, and I scored it. I scored it in Edinburgh as well, and it actually got top marks. But now it's been demoted to a 6.
I'm just gonna have to give this a 4. It's not for me. I'm not bothered. I'm just not bothered. So, what sound effect will you be choosing from the following? A complete train wreck? Tumbleweed? An audible shrug of the shoulders? A slow clap? A pleasant applause? Or a standing ovation? What will it be? Well, I'd give it a...
I'm going to give it a tumbleweed. So there we are. That's our discussion of Unfortunate.
The untold story of Ursula the Sea Witch.
We hope you found it insightful.
If not entertaining.
Stay tuned as we bring you more of our thoughts
And opinions.
on many theatrical delights in future episodes.
So stay tuned.
Oh, you already said that.
If you'd like to get in touch, email us at upstagedownsstagepod@gmail.com. You can always join in the chat to share with us your views of a production.
Also, make sure to follow, share, like and subscribe to all our channels so you get every episode the second it's released. And we hope you join us again for another instalment of Upstage Downstage.
Unfortunate. Oh my god, I can't say that again, can I? Unfortunate is a revisionist. Oh, unfortunately it is. Unfortunate is a parody musical of Disney's Little Mermaid. Ursula becomes the mate. Right, okay. So I'm doing a bit of talking about that.
Do you know what you're doing in this segment?
Yeah. Unfortunate is a parody musical. Unfortunate is a parody musical of Disney's Little Mermaid. Ursula becomes the main character in this musical.
You're not selling me it.
I know I'm not, and I'm trying to get right. Robin.
Ursula becomes the main character in the music.
You're just stuck in Posh World. Oh.
Oh, how unfortunate. I must stop doing that. You do know when we actually record that thing, I'll probably be stuck in that in.
I know exactly.
Cruella told her side, and Maleficent. Cruella told her side, and Maleficent had her moment. Now the legendary queer queen is ready to spill in this tell-all tale of sex. I'm getting a bit gooey in the mouth. I mean, not because of this. I mean,
sex, sorcery, and suckers.
No, all my saliva was like right on my tongue.
On today's episode, we'll be discussing Unfortunate, the untold story of Ursula the Sea Witch.
Has one got constipation?
Oh no, how unfortunate! I wouldn't want to go deep sea diving down there.
Oh no, you'd never get back up, dear.
Oh, absolutely not. Not to mention it's all too clammy. You won't be able to see where you're going.
You may get stuck in the sea.
Oh, how unfortunate.
So there we are. That's our discussion of Unfortunate, the untold story of Ursula the Sea Witch.
You should say unfortunate, and I should say
The untold story of Ursula the Sea Witch.
Are you ready? I don't
No.
think you can redo that.
as she gives her take on what really happened all those years ago under the sea. Did you just speak over my... I heard a rumble. It must have been your belly interrupting. It's hungry.
Oh, it was hungry. It was very unfortunate.
Ravenous!
Just while I'm doing my piece into the microphone. What a time to do it.
Would you kindly remove your piece from the microphone?
It's the only piece I have left.
Pieces of 8?
Right, come on, let's get back on track.
On today's episode, we'll be discussing... No, I'm laughing.
And if I speak with my hands like this, I might be able to enunciate.
Articulate, dear.
And that one.
Articulation's what you need.
I will not be tickled like that.
What we're doing? Is that it?
Yes.